Hi, this is Priyanka Chopra and you're watching Channel Y.
The biggest South Asian media group, Y Media. Y Media has newspaper, midweek, radio, South Asian Pulse.
Hi, I'm Amitabh Bachchan and you're listening to South Asian Pulse.
Hi, this is Amir Khan and you're listening to South Asian Pulse.
अब हर दिन सुने GTA का #1 रेडियो स्टेशन FM 91.9.
You are watching Channel Y. Channel Y.
Prime Minister, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be back.
Online, SouthAsianDaily.com. The biggest South Asian media group, Y Media.
Hello everyone, welcome to Y Media Group. I am your host Shelly Seni and I am joined by Conservative leader POILIEVRE. Hello Minister, how are you?
It's great to be with you, Shelley. Thank you very much for having me.
There has been a lot of conversation about multiple topics, starting from foreign interference to international students to Paul Bernardo. But I want to ask, first of all, you said you will not support the budget, that you will block it if the two conditions that you have laid out are not met. What if those conditions are not being met?
The two conditions are, one, that the government has to announce a plan to balance the budget to bring down inflation and interest rates. And two, that the government has to cancel all planned carbon tax increases. Let me just start with the first one. $500 billion of inflationary deficits by Justin Trudeau, who has doubled our debt and added more debt than all prime ministers combined, have bid up the cost of the goods we buy and the interest we pay. I call it just inflation. And that means that Canadians are paying more to eat, heat, and house themselves. Worse than that, because he flooded our mortgage system with easy cash, many Canadians took out enormous mortgages that they now can't pay back, and they're facing higher monthly payments. Some will come up for renewal after 5 years with payments having risen $1,400 or $1,500 a month. That's 15 grand a year in after-tax money. Nobody can afford that. So that could force many to sell their homes, but no one will be able to buy them because they can't afford the payments either. So we're headed toward, Justin Trudeau is taking us towards a massive financial crisis unless he quickly changes course. And obviously the government doesn't set interest rates, the Bank of Canada does. However, the government affects interest rates with its deficit spending that causes inflation. Deficits cause inflation because it means more money bidding up fewer goods, which leads to higher prices. So that's why I'm saying the government needs to adopt my common sense plan to cap spending with a dollar for dollar law that requires finding $1 savings for every $1 of spending, and also to eliminate waste and mismanagement so that we can balance the budget and bring down interest rates and inflation. Second demand is that we have to cancel the carbon tax hikes. Trudeau wants to more than quadruple his carbon tax from 14 cents a liter to 61 cents a liter. That will raise the price at the pump. Also, it will raise heating costs, and food will go up because food has to be farmed and trucked using fuel. So I'm saying no new carbon tax hikes. Canadians can't afford it. Axe the tax, balance the budget, bring down inflation and interest rates. It's common sense. Let's bring it home, Shelley.
You're talking about interest rates, and Bank of Canada just announced interest rate hike, which is highest in the last 22 years. And as per the latest IMF report as well, amongst the developed G7 countries, Canada has the highest possibility of mortgage default. But where do we go from here? Because from Bank of Canada's perspective, this is being done to curb inflation, to avoid economic fallout.
Well, you're right. Trudeau has created a financial mess that is destroying Canadian family finances. We have under Trudeau, our Canadian families are the most indebted of all the G7. We now have $2.2 trillion of household debt. That means household debt is as large as the entire Canadian GDP. And every time interest rates go up by 1 percentage point, it costs a full percentage point of GDP. They've gone up 4.5% in a year. But think about the impact as those interest rates filter through the entire economy. It's a 4.5% hit on our economy. What's the solution? Well, we have to reverse the policies that created the mess in the first place. We can't get out of the mess by doing the same thing that got us into it. So we have to bring down inflation and interest rates. How? By capping spending, cutting waste to balance the budget and lower interest rates and inflation. We have to get rid of the carbon tax to lower the cost of living. That will bring down inflation and interest rates so that Canadians can make their mortgage payments and keep their homes.
On carbon tax, a lot of people will defy your point. They will, and they might give examples of what is happening right now across Canada. We are facing wildfires and the air quality is dipping so much so that people are really facing a lot of trouble in breathing. So the climate crisis that we are going through, not just in Canada, around the world, it's a reality, hard hit reality. So people will say that what is being done is to kind of, make us more aware of our choices. What do you have to say on that?
Well, that's a good question, Shelley. What we know is that the carbon tax has failed to reduce emissions or prevent forest fires. It has not hit our targets to reduce emissions because it makes things more expensive that Canadians have to use. We still have to drive to work. We still have to heat our homes. We still have to eat food. And all of that requires using traditional hydrocarbon energy. Now, the alternative is to incentivize business to invest in technology, use technology and not taxes, so that we can lower the cost of carbon-free energy rather than raising the cost of traditional oil and gas on which Canadians still depend. How do we do that? Well, for one, we need to replace coal-fired electricity with nuclear and hydroelectric power, which generates no emissions. My government will speed up the approval of nuclear plants and hydroelectric dams so that we can supply that carbon-free energy onto the grid to power electric cars, to heat our homes, but maybe eventually with electricity, and to power industry without emissions. We'll also incentivize carbon capture and storage. And we'll put in place a system of financial incentives that forces large industrial corporations to compete to reduce their emissions for every unit of production so that industry emits less. That's a common sense approach that brings down emissions and brings down the cost of living.
You have been very vocal on the allegations of Chinese interference into the last federal elections. Now, Special Rapporteur David Johnston says, despite of all the criticism he has been facing, that he respects what the MPs collectively have decided, but he will continue to work. Now, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says that by going against David Johnston, you are trying to gain political points. What do you have to say on that?
Mr. Johnson is Justin Trudeau's cottage neighbor, family friend of 40 years. He is a ski buddy of the Prime Minister, and he was a member of the Beijing-financed Trudeau Foundation. All of these things make it impossible for him to be an objective judge of the Prime Minister's conduct in the foreign interference scandal. We know Beijing helped Trudeau win 2 elections by interfering in our election. That's not me who says it, it's CSIS. We know the Trudeau Foundation got $140,000 from Beijing, money that was designed to buy the love and loyalty of the Prime Minister. We know that the Prime Minister has been aware of these things for years through briefing notes that he had that have since been leaked to the media. And that's why we need a full independent investigation to ensure that we bring home control of our democracy back to Canadians, not in the hands of a foreign regime.
But what can be done now? The opposition has been collectively opposing the work, and they have been calling for a public inquiry, and Mr. Johnson has denied that. Now, the very essence and the very reason why he was appointed as special rapporteur was for the Canadians to regain the confidence into the system that governs the country. But that is not happening. Where do we go from here?
Where we go to common sense. So we need an independent judge approved by all parliamentarians to do a full public inquiry to get to the bottom of foreign interference in our democracy. We need a foreign influence registry that requires anyone who's paid by a foreign dictatorship to influence our system to register and have their names posted online. They can be exposed. You have to register, Shelley, if you want to be a lobbyist for the Food Bank or the United Way or any other charity. Your name goes online that you're a lobbyist. But if you're lobbying for a foreign dictatorship, you don't even need to register. I think that's crazy. We need to know who's pulling the strings, and I'll get a registry in place to do that. That's common sense, Shelley. Now let's bring it home.
But who could it be if not the former Governor General who held a non-partisan role? Who could it be?
I would say a judge who has not been involved with the Trudeau Foundation, someone who is not a ski buddy of the Prime Minister, someone who's not a cottage neighbor or a 40-year-long family friend. There are 40 million Canadians. Surely we can find someone who's not part of the Trudeau Foundation that could investigate this. Someone who's independent from all politicians. It shouldn't be my ski buddy. I don't even ski, but it shouldn't be my ski buddy or my cottage neighbor or anyone associated with me or any other political leader. It should be someone who has been a judge, who has no political connections whatsoever, that can be trusted by all Canadians. That's the only way it will work.
Can you think of a name?
I could think of a number of names, but I'd prefer not to name them myself because that would bias the process. I'd like to sit down with all the party leaders, all 5 of us, to sit down and agree on someone together.
And has the NDP so far agreed on doing this?
Yes.
All right. They have taken a firm stand, but they are not pulling support from the Liberal government over this issue. What do you have to say on that?
Unfortunately, we have this costly coalition of the NDP and Liberals that is keeping Justin Trudeau in power, allowing him to continue to run up inflationary debt, continue to raise taxes on gas, heat, and groceries, continue to bankrupt our country and drive Canadians out of home ownership. This is only possible because the NDP has entered this radical and crazy coalition with Justin Trudeau that is out of touch with the values of Canadians. That's why instead of the costly coalition, we need common sense conservatives. And that's what I will bring home as Prime Minister.
Nearly 700 students here, international students, are facing deportation over fake admission letters. What do you have to say on that? That's a substantial number. And they didn't know the admission letters were fake. It was an agent back home in India that duped them. And these papers passed through CBSA. Where do we stand here?
Well, it's the continued human misery as a result of Justin Trudeau's total incompetence. To start with, the Trudeau government should have been able to verify that the letters were fake years ago when they were first used. Let's remember, these students handed in the letters. So the government has had these letters for years. And they could have simply called the educational institutions and said, are these real? And if not, they could have gone back to the students and said, listen, it looks like you've been duped. Let's start over again, get yourself a real letter, and then we can proceed. But instead, the Trudeau government let it happen, let the students come. They got here, they did their studies, many graduated, many are already employed, doing important work in our economy. And now Trudeau says he wants to deport them all. Why? What's the point of deporting them now? What harm would it cause to let those who were here having come in good faith to stay and continue to live out their work permits and apply like everyone else for permanent residency? We need young people because of our aging population. We need workers because of our labor shortage. Why not allow these good faith students to stay here rather than sending them home empty-handed with a big pile of debts that will destroy their families in India. This is crazy. We need to start to treat our international students with respect, ensure they have decent housing, that they're not exploited, and that they are respected, rather than losing them to suicide or unnecessary deportations. And that's why yesterday I rose in the House of Commons to call for the government to stop the deportations now.
Right. You make it sound very easy. That just stop the deportation. But we have heard nothing from the government yet. And the students have been on a protest, indefinite protest, they say, because they have been stuck between CBSA and IRCC and facing an uncertainty in their future. What do they do?
Keep protesting. Conservatives are fighting for the students at the Immigration Committee. I will be joining the protest hopefully this weekend. We're trying to find a time slot for me to go and visit with them. I'm going to continue to escalate pressure on the Trudeau government to reverse course and let these students finish their studies and at least their work permits so they can make an application. If there are any students that deliberately defrauded the system, well, let's just investigate that. And those that deliberately defrauded, well, yes, they should go. But everyone else who acted in good faith, which I believe is almost all of them, just let them stay, let them work, let them start a family and be part of the Canadian family.
Good to know that you are planning on joining the protest. So that is a ray of hope for the students who are protesting out there with big question marks that lie ahead in their life. And hopefully they get their answers soon. Now, another question mark was, people are still really angry over what happened with Paul Bernardo from high security prison to medium security prison. Now, you have registered your protest over it here in Ontario. The Premier, Doug Ford, even he gave a very harsh statement saying that he should be brought in maximum security prison, but that is not happening. Even the reason why he was shifted to medium security is not out in the open. Now, there are some experts who are saying that as much as people want revenge, as much as they want him to stay in maximum security, the way law functions is different. But don't the families, the affected families, deserve an answer, a clarity, a transparency as to why was this step taken and what, going further, can be made to ensure that this does not happen again?
So Justin Trudeau has brought in a criminal justice system that is soft on hard, repeat offenders, and he has the power to reverse this decision. The Minister of Public Safety that reports to Trudeau has the ability to declare that all mass murderers should stay in a maximum security prison for the duration of their sentence. So all he has to do is make that regulatory edict, and Bernardo would have to stay in a maximum security prison. Yesterday, I called on Trudeau's public safety minister to do that. Trudeau refuses. That means Trudeau is in favor of moving Bernardo to a medium security prison. Trudeau is wrong on this, and I will continue to fight. I'm looking at other legal action that I could take to ban Trudeau from allowing Bernardo to move to a medium security institution. We need a common sense criminal justice reform that protects victims against the most vile repeat offenders.
Right. Well, thank you so much for talking to us. But before I let you go, do you have a message for our audience?
Yes, I know that this is a terrible time in Canada. The government is broke and everything feels broken. The cost of government is driving up the cost of living. People, 9 in 10 young people can't afford a home after 8 years of Trudeau. 1 in 5 Canadians are skipping meals, 1.5 million eating at food banks. This is probably the worst time in Canada that I can remember. But that is the life that Canadians are suffering after Trudeau. But the good news is we're going to turn the hurt that he's caused into the hope that Canadians need. We're going to bring home lower prices by getting rid of the inflationary deficits and taxes and balancing the budget to lower inflation and interest rates. We're going to bring home powerful paychecks with lower income tax that reward hard work, and by removing gatekeepers so immigrants can work in their professions. We're going to bring homes by removing the gatekeepers to build, 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 build. We're going to bring home safety with jail and not bail for the most violent repeat offenders. And we're going to bring home freedom by ending internet censorship and allowing freedom of expression online, stopping foreign interference. This is common sense, Shelley, the common sense of the common people, united for our common home. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home.
Thank you so much for talking to us. I appreciate your time.
Great to be with you, Shelley. So much. Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, this is Priyanka Chopra and you're watching Channel Y.
The biggest South Asian media group, Y Media. Y Media has newspaper, midweek, radio, South Asian Pulse.
Hi, I'm Amitabh Bachchan, and you're listening to South Asian Pulse.
Hi, this is Amir Khan and you're listening to South Asian Pulse.
अब हर दिन सुने GTA का नंबर 1 रेडियो स्टेशन FM 91.9।
You are watching Channel Y. Channel Y.
Prime Minister, welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be back.
Online, SouthAsianDaily.com. The biggest South Asian media group, Y Media.